Let's replace these two arms on this DJI Mavic Air that we repaired in a previous episode. I'm not too concerned about the fact that they're glued, it's just mainly because whoever glued this front one here, which wasn't me, didn't glue it in the correct position, so it kind of sticks out some. So I think we should just replace these with new. The one I glued is holding up great, but let's just replace them with some new arms I got on AliExpress. Most of the arms you find come with motors pre-installed, which means they're stupidly expensive, but I got these just the plastic pieces on AliExpress for a whole lot cheaper, so we should be able to just swap our motors onto it and use these ones. Now I've removed the top cover and I've discovered why it's so damaged. I should have gotten a new one of these, but I think we'll do some stuff to make this look better. See, this has these two plastic studs here for screws. Previous revisions of this, well, other revisions, I don't actually know if they were previous or not, has screws right here up under the gimbal that screwed this top plate on. That's what this top cover is from, a drone with that revision. However, somebody has swapped this one onto this one that obviously doesn't have the holes for those studs, dented the top of the drone, and obviously damaged those. That's awesome. I can also tell that this is a replacement cover because it's white and this is a black drone, so somebody did some stupid shit. I also got this cover off with a little bit of heat and a razor blade, and now we can take the rest of the screws out. You may notice that I already started taking the screws out. That's because I actually started doing this and realized, wait, I should be filming this. Might as well do something with it. And now we've removed this thing here. We can see our nice dent there in the plastic. Now you have to be very careful because this ribbon cable is attached to this top part right here. You just have to disconnect the little sticky stuff there, and you can remove that without breaking this. Well, the other way around. You remove this without breaking that. Now we're into the actual electronics of the drone, and we can kind of see our wing attachment here. Can't really see the rear one though. And now we've just removed that there. Got to pull off some Lego connectors, and we can get this thing out. If you want an actually good guide to do this guy. Here's what I'm looking at. I'm just here for the entertainment, I guess. And there we go. The top board's removed. I have no idea what that is. That's interesting. Some kind of sensor. And here we are at the bottom board. We can now see our wires for our arms that we're going to have to desolder. Alright, so I've covered these so I don't damage them. We just have to desolder these three, and those three. Okay, so we got white, we got black, and we have red. Everything has been desoldered. Now we just need to actually remove these wings. I believe just these two screws here, and there's a screw on the outside of this one, and we should be able to yank these out. Then we can switch our motors over to our new arms and put the new arms in. Now the rear wing is off, however we need to remove the front. And I didn't really find any guides on how to do that. I removed the top plastic piece with those two screws, and it's got basically like a Game Boy SP hinge in it. Now, we need to remove the bottom. I've removed the plastic piece there that was just adhesive, and then there's two more Phillips head screws, and I think maybe we'll be able to get in, and there'll be another plastic piece like that one on the bottom, possibly, and then I think we'll be able to remove this other wing. There we go, just like I suspect. We have a piece of grass in there, and it looks like we're missing a screw, honestly. Let's remove this, and we should be able to pull off this arm. And there we go. Now we have our two damaged arms removed. Now it's time to figure out how to disconnect these motors. It looks like we have some screws on top, maybe some screws underneath. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think the screws on top need to come off. I think those just hold that plastic piece on top. I think maybe there's some covers we gotta pop off, and maybe there's some screws underneath. For the front one, I found there's a screw under there. Once you get that screw out, it looks like you just twist this a little bit, just like that, and this cover should pop off, just like that, and we can get to the screws that hold this motor in. So a few more things are a little bit more fun. That is such a small amount of wire to splice onto this motor. That is ridiculous. Secondly, I think this one's used. Like, what the fuck? Okay. Secondly, not only did they not give me enough wire to solder to the motor, they didn't give me enough to run back inside the drone. Awesome. So we'll probably just run the old wire back through this one because, well, that's too short. This one here, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do yet, but yeah, that's ridiculous. There we go. Our new rear wing has been assembled. I was able to feed the old wire back through this thing, so I didn't have to use their shittily cut wire. Now this arm is ready to go back on the drone. Now we need to get this one, which I believe is new. They have a nice piece of plastic on it and everything, and maybe that one's new too. It just, you know, was beat to shit up in shipping or something. But let's figure out what we're going to do here. This one, unfortunately, the shielding was all glued together and all damaged, so I can't really do what I just did with that one on this one. So let's figure out what we're going to do. So what I've done is I've soldered all of the old wires on this motor onto the new wires in this arm, and I'm pulling the new wires out of this arm, pulling the old wires from the motor back through, making it so we can use the original wires without having to do any weird annoying splices. And there we go. It's been reassembled. I just have to desolder the extra wire here now and put these things back in the drone. So I'm glad I checked this. It's still not closing properly, so the person did actually glue it in the right angle. They just got a fuck ton of glue in that fucking spot where it's supposed to sit. So pull this off again and clean that out. It looks like they got a blob of epoxy, well, right there. So let's see if we can get that off with a razor blade. Probably just gonna have to shave it down, and we should be able to get that wing to close properly. Okay, now it looks like we're closing a little bit better. And now we're gonna solder all those wires back on. Now I'm just gonna throw some glue on the solder joints. You don't want them coming off. Just load the motherboard back in and basically reverse everything we just did. And there we go. We're coming along pretty well. We just need to attach this thing here, and then we need to get some new adhesive and, well, re-adhesive everything. And there we go. This is looking much better. We just need to peel this off. That is on there. Goodness. There we go. That's looking much better. All those arms now fully closed. Now, we need to make this not look like that. Now, the first thing we need to do is remove those studs so we don't have any more of them pushing down or up. And then we're going to have to sand off the extra that's sticking up. Now, I've removed the piece of Velcro that I was using for the remote ID module, and we need to remove some of the paint that was still under here from, well, the original paint that was on this. This thing was originally painted really poorly. And now I'm just going to use a little bit of sandpaper to smooth out these bumps, and then I guess we'll use something to probably fill that one. Now to fill this, we're going to use the good old-fashioned super glue and salt method. We're going to use some super glue to put in there, and then we're going to use some salt to turn it more into a paste, and we'll make the super glue dry really fast, and leave us with a nice paste that should fill that hole nicely. There we go. I ended up using baking soda instead of salt to make it a bit less rough. Now we just need to sand that down, and we should be good to go. And there we go. Nice and smooth, both of them. So now what we're going to do is actually wrap this thing. I'm thinking this scrap piece of piano black vinyl I have, as I think it'll help match the rest of the drone since there's no other white on this drone. So that's what we're going to do. There we go. Far from perfect, but that's basically what this drone's middle name is. That should look a whole lot better than, well, that white, really beat up top with the holes in it. Hey, look at that. Now both front red LEDs work. Previously, only the non-broken side would work. The side with the re-glued together wing, for some reason, the red LED would not work in. So when I first tried to test it there, nothing was working, the camera wasn't showing up, and it gave me a critically over temp issue, so I shut it down, took it back apart, and just replugged in all the Lego connectors, and now it's functioning correctly. One of my Lego connectors must not have been fully inserted, and that probably was causing your issue, but now it appears to be working. Let me just actually make sure the motors are functioning, and we'll reassemble this thing. There we go. That's exactly what I want to see. All of them appear to be spinning in their correct directions, so now let's shut this thing down and reassemble it, and try it again. There we go. Now let's give it another test and see if it'll fly. I can't really do that right now because it is raining incredibly hard. I ended up giving this thing a test inside since it was raining so hard outside, and without GPS stabilization, this thing was perfectly stable. Before it would drift a little bit inside here without GPS stabilization, but without that, with the propellers actually being in the correct position, it was perfectly stable. However, did run into one slight issue. These propellers ended up being slightly too close together because there was a piece of epoxy stuck up front here so this wing wouldn't open fully, which resulted in those being slightly closer together, which ended up clipping off a little bit of the coating off of that propeller, which resulted in just a clicking noise while it was flying. It was kind of interesting. I honestly expected it to be much more catastrophic than that, but hey, apparently just touching tips isn't that big of a deal. Who'd have thought? It also still has a front obstacle avoidance calibration error, but it had that before I did anything, so nothing has changed there. Ultimately, if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. We normally work on arcade machines, but occasionally I work on random shit like this. I always find the size of this drone ridiculous. As somebody who usually flies a Phantom 4, this thing is, it's tiny.